Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio, where you can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships. Whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind, God is concerned about that which concerns you. So we are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable, artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Earth's finest water at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware to support the broadcast, and those of you who make a contribution on our websites at NewLifeMinistriesInternational.com or NewLifeInternationalCDC.com, and those who use the QR code or the link provided on Facebook and YouTube to support the broadcast, we thank all of you for your commitment and for your support as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. So I'm going to remind all of our listeners and viewers, we are Facebook Live, we are YouTube Live, we are RadioFreeNetwork.com Live. If you go to RadioFreeNetwork.com, click on radio, the drop box will appear. Click on the New Life link. Every broadcast is available to you. We are on YouTube Live at Daily Divine Direction, Monday through Friday, from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so, we want you to stay connected with us throughout the week. We play music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on our internet radio station, WKAP Faith and Empowerment Radio. You can find us at WKAPfaith.com, where we play music that will encourage you, empower you, and inspire you to become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become. So I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you are having problems with dating due to the fact that you have 3 young children. However, you do not want to date men who have children. So you ask how do you navigate these issues. So these are 2 different topics that are very similar to one another. So you say you're having difficulties dating men because you have 3 young children. So first and foremost, you've got to deal with that dynamic because you have 3 lives that you are responsible for. The key to that is that you need to be available to someone, first and foremost, who is receptive to, first and foremost, not only dating you, but having a relationship with your children, building a relationship with your children. And if the relationship results in marriage, it has to be someone who's willing to be responsible for those 3 young lives. Now, having said all of that, we have to recognize that there's something you and a man who has children have in common, and that is that you're both parents. So that's probably the reason, well, not probably, that's the reason that men who have children are they're more likely to gravitate towards you because they understand the dynamics of being a parent. They understand the dynamics of you having children that they would have to be responsible for also. And so that's going to be the primary reason that men are going to be attracted to you who already have children. But you say you don't want to date a man who has children because then it's going to it's going to compound what you perceive to be a problem. But here's the reality. That's a choice. That's a preference. You're going to reduce the dating pool by the fact that you do not want children. That you do not want a man who has children. You do not want to date a man who has children. And the reason that you reduce the dating pool is because here's the reality. The places that you go most likely are going to be places that are also conducive for children to be in those locations. You're going to encounter men who are, I'll give you a prime example. You're not going to find a single man hanging out at Chuck E. Cheese. I'm using that as an example because that's a place or you're not going to find a single man hanging out at Sesame Place. You're not going to find a single man who is spending his time in a children's environment unless he has children. So you have to understand that there's a compatibility issue there. And then because you don't want to date a man who has children, you want to date a single man who doesn't have children, but then you have to take into consideration, is that man going to want to date you when you have 3 children? So we've got to understand our dynamics. And what I'm going to say is this is for all our listeners and viewers. You've got to understand the dynamics of your life. And then you have to understand that if a man takes an interest in you and you have children, he is taking on the responsibility of helping you to raise those children. And then you have to treat it as such. So you have to be willing to, the children can't be first, the couple have to be first, and then you nurture your children together. And what that means is that you've got to look at the dynamics and say, okay, if this person is willing to come into my life, he understands he's going to be taking on the responsibility of being a parent to your 3 children also. And then you have to allow him to be a parent, because that's sometimes a problem. And that will send a man off on his own direction and go on his way, and then you'll say, okay, well, that's fine because he wasn't all that anyway. But the reality was he was willing to be all of that, but you ran him off. So we got to take that, we've got to look at the totality of the dynamics of our lives. Now, it's fine. You can wait for a man to find you who doesn't have children, that is going to increase the size of your family and that you're going to have to take responsibility for also. But you got to know you have 3 young children, you said in your communication, which means that he's got to be willing to take on the responsibility of young children. And truth be told, you're probably going to be more effective understanding the dynamics of that. So I think what happens with a lot of people when they don't have children, they have no idea what it is to be responsible. We have natural human tendencies. Men, if we get married, we have the ability to be a father. A woman has the ability to be a mother. But we've got to develop those skills. And we're all going to bring our life experiences to the table, so we've got to know what that looks like. We've got to understand, make the effort to understand that. So, I understand what you're saying about not wanting to date a man with children, but you also got to navigate those issues, because that may not be what, let me take you here. That may not be what God intends for you. That may be what you want, but it may not be what God intends for you. And here's the truth of the matter. It's fine that you have that as your plan, but you got to be okay with it if God adjusts your plan, because you may miss your blessing. because someone has children, and instead of you having 3, you might end up with 5 because he may have 2 children that he adds to the equation, and you say that's not what you want. That may not be what you want, but that may be what God wants for you. So you got to take that into consideration also. So there's a lot of moving parts to life. You're just learning to navigate the issues. And the reason, and I'm going to say this to you, one of the reasons that you have that in your mind is because you have children and then you dated someone who had baby mama issues. You know, they had issues with their children's mother. And that dynamic got a little complicated for you. You don't want to deal with that dynamic again, and understandably so. But that doesn't mean that everyone is going to bring that kind of drama to your life. And even if they have something going on, they'll handle it. So you've got to know that navigating these life issues are not as simple or as black and white as we sometimes believe that they are. You've got 3 children, and you're raising them as a single parent. That's a hard job. If you got someone who's willing to partner with you, whether they've got children or not, you may learn that it may be to your benefit to navigate that. But in the interim, you can still hope for what you hope for. Keep hope alive. And if it works out that way for you, great. But either way, your only concern should be that the next man who comes into your life won't come in being incapable of dealing with his baggage of life, and at the same time he'll come in with the intent of helping you to raise your children to be great children and to have a great quality of life. Because that's what we're all working for, is a great quality of life. We sometimes complicate, and I'm going to pour this out for our listeners and viewers also. We sometimes complicate our own lives. Life sometimes can be very simple, and truth be told, which is going to take me into another communication, it can also be sometimes mundane. But you got to look at it from a different perspective, and that is that it's consistent. And consistency is one of the keys to success. So you've got to say to yourself, okay, if I can be consistent for a long period of time, not allow my emotions to swing to and fro. The Bible tells us that. You know, you can't be carried like the wind to and fro. It tells you don't turn to the left, don't turn to the right. You got to stay focused. You got to be consistent for a long period of time. And then you'll enter the promised land. And the promised land of your life. Because consistency is one of the keys to success. So I'm just going to encourage you to broaden your horizons. Don't allow one experience to dictate the rest of your life. That one experience that you had with someone who had drama with his baby's mothers, don't let that dictate how you look at the big picture of life. You know, so many of you have heard me mention the big picture over and over again. And I always use the Mona Lisa as an analogy because most people have heard of the Mona Lisa, a painting by Leonardo da Vinci. And yet everyone always talks about Mona Lisa's smile. But there's so much more to the painting than just her smile. You know, why did he position his subject the way that he positioned her to sit? What was his thought process when he chose the colors for the painting? What was his thought process that inspired him to choose those colors, to dictate the background, to determine her position? There's a much bigger picture here. And that's with every painting ever painted. We're all God's greatest masterpiece. There's much more to all of us than just our smile. But you look much better when you smile. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. At T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you do not feel that your life is interesting. You said it's not boring, however, just not interesting. So, I'm going to say this to you. That's a very interesting statement that you made in your communication. You said life is not boring, and some people, tend to take everyday life as being boring, but once again, I'll get back to consistency. But, the reality is you say it's not interesting. Stop trying to determine what's interesting about your life or not interesting about your life based on other people. Identify what is of interest to you, not other people, and do that. Look at what you find to be interesting and focus some attention on that. That will break up your day, that will break up your week, that will break up your month, it will break up your year. It will allow you to have some different experiences. And yet, so I was reading your communication and I immediately thought of my wife, because my wife likes to work out, she likes Pilates, she likes yoga, she likes certain things. She's never going to base her life on what other people are doing. And she finds what's of interest to her, and then she really focuses on doing those things. Now we have some differences of what we like to do, but we have some things we enjoy doing similar and together. So we're both runners. We run. We both work out. I don't do Pilates. I've done yoga. Not hot yoga, but I've done yoga. But those aren't necessarily my things. Those are her things. She enjoys doing. I'm a golfer. I like to play golf. She has now taken up golf, but there was a time when golf was not significant to her. But you find things that are of interest to you and do that. Don't base it. And I just use the two of us as an example because that's a husband and wife that aren't even basing what we find of interest on each other's interest, just doing what we enjoy doing and finding things that we even enjoy doing together, that we can do together. At the same time, you're basing it on not even on your spouse. You're basing it on external people. What they think is boring. So, another analogy. Our home is very quiet. Our daughter thinks our home is boring because it's quiet. Never any excitement going on. She thinks that's boring. We call that peaceful. So you've got to decide what's of interest to you. Peace is of interest to us. We don't need a lot of noise. We don't need a lot going on. There are moments when we do certain things. We may entertain. We may, do some things that are enjoyable, but we're not bored. And you say you're not bored, but you say your life's not interesting. Well, you've got to just determine what's of interest to you. You're basing what's interesting on what you see other people doing or what other people tell you they're doing, or you're basing it on what you see on social media. You you can't live your life based on that. It can't be that. You have to focus on what's of interest to you, what brings you joy, and do that. Because the rest of it is not important. What goes on in the outside world, outside of your own life, is not important. It's only what you make of your life, the best that you can make of your life. That's what's important. And because people are always looking for some form of excitement, something to charge them up for a moment, and then they come down. I was reading an article, and I'm going to share this because you all hear me make jokes during the sermon about Eagles, and we tease each other about, athletics and sports. And one of the things about the Eagles, the reason they're having so much success this year is because they've learned the secret. The secret is you don't ever want to be so high and you don't ever want to be so low. You want to have your emotions at an even plane. If the reason we get so disappointed in life is because there are points where we get real high. Things are going really well, you're excited about life, you're doing a lot of things, and then when life goes back to being normal, people go into real lows. And one of the things that I've observed about the Eagles this year, and the reason they're having so much success, the reason they're 12-1, I'm rubbing that in for some of our opponent fans, is that they don't get real high and they don't get real low. They stay right in the middle and focus on what's important. It's the same thing. The reason I'm using the sports analogy is because it's the same thing about life. You don't want life to be so high at moments that when it's not high, when it comes back to normal, you perceive normal to be a low. And then you allow your emotions to drop below the plateau. That doesn't mean we don't climb high mountains. That doesn't mean we don't soar. It just means that you can't allow your emotions to get so far out, so high, that your normal becomes your lows. Because we've got to make certain that every day we're consistent about what we're doing so that we can work to build the best results. Because the more, the more you do anything, the better you become at it. There are going to be days when it may not look your best. It may be the best you can give on that day, but tomorrow is going to be a new day. And one of the things that we've got to be mindful of is that we want to stay consistent on one plateau that allows us to become successful and maximize our success. We want to experience the fullness of God. And that all begins with the way we think, the way we speak, and the way we act. So I want to encourage you today, don't focus on what others feel is interesting. Focus on identify what you believe is interesting so that you can really enjoy a great quality of life. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, stop in at their retail stores. They have everything you could possibly need for a man. Shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories. I'm in Charles Tyrwhitt Attire today. If you're not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Tyrwhitt at ctshirts.com. They will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And The White Company, located in London, the UK. They also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. If you're in New York, stop in at the retail store. They have everything that you could possibly need: home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. And if you're not in New York, you can order from The White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who said that you are told by your family and friends, you said even co-workers, and now your husband says that when things are going really well, your attitude always disrupts the success. Okay, so let me talk about that a little bit. Because one of the things that I have observed in life is that people will sometimes sabotage their own lives. And for numerous reasons. They will sabotage their own lives. Now, you said that, you've been told this by family and friends, even coworkers. Now your husband's saying you have a bad attitude, and he said that you're disrupting your own success by your attitude. But here's the reality. You've got to figure out what it is that is causing you, and I'm going to use the term sabotage. He said disrupt, but I'm going to use the term sabotage. Sometimes people will sabotage their own life because they don't feel they deserve the success they're having. They will sabotage their own life because they become overconfident about who they are and what they are. They will sabotage their success because they aren't feeling good about themselves. Now, I know that might sound like the same thing as when I started, when I said, they feel like they don't deserve it, but no, they're not comfortable. It's different, because it's one thing to feel you don't deserve it. It's the other thing to feel you're not comfortable with it. In other words, pardon me, my allergies are bothering me today, so just bear with me. When you're not comfortable with who you are and what you are, you feel that you should be doing more with your life. This happens to a lot of people because you feel like you have wasted a good portion of your life and you should be accomplishing more. And you're basing that on other people. So once again, you start doing little things that will sabotage, but it all goes back to attitude. So let's think about this first and foremost. Family, friends, co-workers, now your husband, who knows you better than anyone, have all said the same thing. It starts with your attitude. You are the only common denominator. So you've got to ask yourself, why am I not satisfied with my life? Do I think I deserve more, or do I think I'm not worthy of what I have? And then that all goes back to being thankful where you are right now. Am I thankful for what God has done in my life? If I'm really thankful and I'm really grateful, I shouldn't have a bad attitude. You got to live in your gratefulness and your thankfulness every day. Because if we do, then our attitude is going to get right. If it hasn't been right, we will renew our mind. But you have to decide which it is that you're dealing with. And then work on that. Work on you. So that you can be a better version of yourself. That's what we all want to do, is to be a better version of ourselves, to become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become and experience the fullness of God. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast, 3D, has been brought to you by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. May God bless you today. May God keep his face turned towards you